What's true and not true there?
First, I want to say that this is brilliant work by Dirk Hofmeister's lab again. So the blue that you see is it's the degradation of psilocin. So a couple of things are happening there. Start with psilocybin. When you bruise or hurt the mushroom, you're breaking up the cells and you're releasing the enzymes that are in the mushroom. So one of those enzymes is actually converting the psilocybin into psilocin. Right, it's very, very rapidly taking off that phosphate ester and turning it into the hydroxy group. And then in the presence of the oxygen here on Earth, that molecule is getting oxidized, and the psilocin is. And then as it's getting oxidized, the psilocin binds to another molecule of psilocin to make these dimers and oligomeric or polymeric degradation products from the psilocin, and it's that is blue.
So basically the psilocin clumps together, sticks together in essence, and that is creating that color. So the bluing would be an indication of the psilocin content of the mushroom, but the more blue that you see, the more psilocin is now unavailable for you if you were to ingest that.
It is a direct measure of how much of your drugs you just ruined, I think. And then there are other variables in there. There are some magic mushrooms that don't have the enzyme that do one of the conversions, and so therefore not all magic mushrooms bruise blue.
Okay.
But it is not showing you the psilocin. It's basically showing you the degraded, oxidized psilocin.
Yeah. So if we start to think about how do I put this? Okay, so you've got all these biotech companies trying to make quote unquote real drugs, pharmaceutical products that can be monetized out of something like psilocybin. So we talked about the Compass Pathways trials earlier. Let's say that they're successful. They want to give these things to people in the clinic. One sort of factor that comes into this and potentially limits the business potential there is the fact that mushrooms are pretty easy to grow. They grow wild in places like the Pacific Northwest and elsewhere, and people can get magic mushrooms very easily. They can get psilocybin. They can, in fact, we can go to the stores around here, and for those of you that don't live here, and I don't know how it is in other parts of the country, you can buy magic mushroom chocolate bars very, very easily out here. They're branded, they're packaged, and these things are all over the place. What do you think about that? Sort of just like the ease with which psilocybin and related things can be made by people in the so-called gray market or gray zones of commerce, and how often does that happen, and how is it going to interact with the quest to create pharmaceutical drugs?
Well, there's a lot there. I think that the quest to develop pharmaceutical drugs is going to become more divorced from magic mushrooms. I think that pharma is going to go do its pharma thing with purely synthetic molecules, and they're probably going to get rid of the trip because pharma wants to give you an orange bottle that you take home, and you don't need to sit in a clinic with eye shades and gentle music for however many hours.
Yeah.
Which means that there's the non-pharma products or drugs available there. I do have a pretty strong opinion that go get mushrooms or grow your own mushrooms, because if you grow your own mushrooms, you know what you have, which is very, very important. See, for example, these chocolate bars you're talking about. Also, people have been taking magic mushrooms for thousands and thousands of years without any real incident. So the safety element seems to be there, whereas I wouldn't be able to I'm not recommending anything, but I wouldn't feel the same way about some dialkyltryptamine that I made in the lab that no one has ever taken before. Right. You're always sort of wondering is there something I've overlooked here? Whereas with magic mushrooms that you grew in your fish tank at home, you're probably going to be okay.
So part of what you're doing at Camtech, right, is you are studying all of these molecules, you're creating new molecules, and then you're getting patents on these things. So you own IP. You've created a lot of molecules, and you own the IP, yes?
Oh, yes. We are swimming in molecules and intellectual property. Mind you, all these molecules I just told you not to take. Go grow mushrooms.
Yeah. So, if we take, for example, the case of Alexander Shulgin, I'm just going to I'll assume people know who Shulgin is. If they don't, they can go look it up. But Shulgin, he famously did all the Shulgin experiments that he did on his own. This sort of renegade guy. He created all these new molecules, and somehow, some way, slowly but surely, some of these things at least started to leak out into the world, and then other people figured out how to make them, and you can buy street drugs that are Shulgin molecules, to this day. Is that happening at all with some of these new research chemicals that you and others work on? Are they leaking out of the confines of the chemistry labs that you guys operate and getting out into the world at all?
I will start by saying that nothing gets out of our labs. We have a very strict policy at Camtech that we're not Alexander Shulgin. We don't taste the drugs. Mm-hmm. You refer to him as sort of a renegade. I think he's a wonderful scientist, a brilliant scientist, and I think the context for his work was just different from ours. Like back then, you could eat the molecules, and he did a really nice job scientifically synthesizing, recording how to synthesize, and then his experience taking increasing amounts of them. And it's gratitude to Shulgin. That's why we know as much about the human pharmacology as we do, because otherwise it's tens of millions of dollars to get it into a human. Mm-hmm. Now to the chocolate bars. I think what has happened, and I don't know, because I've only known about this I was shocked when I found out that there's billions of dollars of magic mushroom chocolate bars flying around the U.S. right now.
It's literally billions of dollars.
It's billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of comforting in the sense that you don't hear about a lot of problems.
Right. Yeah,
so
I've never heard of one.
Right. There is.
I'm sure people have had bad trips.